Gentlemen, there is no fighting in the war room, but there is a lot of exasperation in the Russian Security Council chamber. It is time to pick up the phone, because today's geopolitics helpline is all about the absurdities of the last 4 years. What is the most ridiculous thing that has happened in the war? My friend, I think you mean what is the most ridiculous thing that has happened in the war so far? And I can give you a short list of reasonable answers for unreasonable activities before reaching a much longer, much more ridiculous answer. How about the start of the invasion, where so many Russian war machines got stuck in the mud that it became fashionable for Ukrainian farmers to tow the vehicles out and parade around their new trophies? Or, with Russia feeling the initial squeeze of export bans, the semiconductors apparently pulled out of dishwashers and refrigerators to help run tanks. It was probably not as widespread of a practice as it is commonly believed, but even if it only happened once, that is still pretty ridiculous. Or maybe the Crimean bridge attacks. Well, not the attacks themselves. Those are perfectly reasonable operations. Venturing outside the realm of reasonable and headed toward ridiculous is this official Ukrainian stamp, which appears to show Jack and Rose from Titanic having a moment at the end of the bridge. Or how about the false flag operation that Russia alleged it broke up? Here is an official photo of the evidence collected. Why would Ukrainian militants need 3 copies of The Sims? Perhaps they were using it for training? Or maybe something got lost in translation, with a Russian commander instructing his team to fabricate the evidence and include a handful of Sims? But instead of getting the chip that goes into a cell phone, they got the video game? It did not help that Russia blurred the Sims in later distributions of the evidence, implicitly admitting the mistake. Or maybe it is this ceramic rooster? We have not seen it in a while. Mass-produced from the 1960s to the 1980s, it became a meme after one miraculously clung to a wall despite the rest of its apartment getting bombed. It got new life when Boris Johnson received one as a gift from a passerby as he toured Kyiv in April 2022. It even somehow made it onto the NATO Christmas tree. Oh, and in the latest edition of Things You Might Not Have Noticed in My Commonly Used B-Roll, one has been sitting behind Zelensky this entire time. If we rewind further back, how about this absurdly long desk that sat between Putin and Macron when the French president was trying one last shot at diplomacy? Man, the pandemic era was wild. However, my pick for the most ridiculous thing of the war so far is a different absurdity from the eve of the invasion. And it is a perfect mix of a very serious exchange and absolute silliness. The broader event in question occurred on February 21st, 2022, just 3 days before Russian tanks would begin their failed march toward Kyiv. The Russian Security Council had a televised meeting to discuss formally recognizing the Luhansk People's Republic and the Donetsk People's Republic as independent states. Pardon them for the wide shots, again due to COVID protocols. According to the Kremlin's official timeline, the leaders of the LPR and the DPR asked for Russian recognition late that afternoon. The Security Council then met to discuss the issue. After they adjourned, Putin thought more about the decision and then ultimately addressed the Federation from his office to explain why he would support them. By the end of the night, there was a signing ceremony to make it official. However, that is not what appears to have actually happened. Based on the wristwatches everyone is wearing, the signing ceremony was filmed before the Security Council meeting to discuss whether to have said signing ceremony, and both happened much earlier in the day than the breakaway republic's pleas for Russian recognition. Timing aside, the meeting began with Putin airing his grievances with Ukraine over the 2014 Maidan, and NATO for inevitably admitting Ukraine into the organization and then entrapping itself in a war against Russia due to Crimea. Never mind that NATO's admission policy requires new members to have settled their territorial disputes, precisely so that this type of thing does not happen. Putin then solicited the opinions of each of his Security Council members. First up was Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. More grievances with NATO, but not much else to say. 2 later was Alexander Bortnikov, the head of the FSB. He reported on a refugee crisis and Ukrainian shelling of Rostov, and sabotage operations on top of it, basically laying the groundwork for Russia to describe this as a defensive operation. Next up, then Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu. Some counts of shelling inside the Donbass, and, I guess Ukraine is going to start working on nuclear weapons. That led to Dmitry Medvedev, former president, and now the deputy chairman of the Security Council. His focus was drawing on a parallel to the 2008 Russo-Georgian War, which he oversaw. That one lasted 16 days, or less than 1% of how long we have been doing this one. Fast forward to Nikolai Patrushev, then the Secretary of the Security Council. More discussion of how the West is behind this, and that the United States is plotting the fall of Russia. Ironic in retrospect, given that Russia is essentially causing its own downfall at this point. Next was Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, whom I am only mentioning now because he will be the answer to a pop quiz in a future video. But then we finally get to the main event for today. It was Sergei Naryshkin, director of the Foreign Intelligence Service. Ostensibly, his role in this was to place the blame in the hands of the West for not forcing Ukraine to accept Russia's position on the Donbass. This is when we finally hit peak absurdity. The meeting began going off the rails when Naryshkin stumbled on explaining whether Russia should recognize the regions or begin a negotiation with the West on it. Putin got annoyed and asked him to speak plainly, which is exactly the opposite of what happened next. Rather, Naryshkin said that he will support the recognition proposal. Putin, growing frustrated, did not like the idea that he will support it, instead of outright supporting it now. Then there were a couple more exchanges with them speaking over each other, another demand for Naryshkin to speak plainly, and then Putin, on the verge of giving up, just asked for a yes or no response. Instead, Naryshkin replied with 24 words, and immediately regretted them. That is what I am saying. I support the proposal to have the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics become part of the Russian Federation. Do you see the problem? He supports the proposal for Russia to annex those regions. At this point, Putin could not help but laugh. Naryshkin had gotten ahead of the script. This was a meeting only about recognition. No doubt that this was never the Kremlin's endgame. We only had to jump 7 months ahead to watch the annexation signatures be put to paper. But Naryshkin had said the quiet part out loud. Perhaps the craziest part is that the exchange made it to air. Remember, this was not actually live. It was pre-taped, out of order, and all part of a larger script. Someone could have edited it out, but no one did. It is the perfect mix of an unhinged interaction and actual serious repercussions for the world. And that is why it is my pick for the most absurd thing that has happened in the war so far. Meanwhile, we have so far racked up about 70 geopolitics helpline sessions. Click here to look through the archive. And if you enjoyed today's video, then please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.